Katie and Vulture, welcome to Irish Granny Tarot. We are making our way through our Saturday book, continuing to the end, I hope. Not that I want to be at the end of it, but I hope we're achieving that. Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 2, High Strangeness by Linda Moulton Howe. And we had an abbreviated video number 8. Sorry about that. And then video number 9 just concluded. This is, no, wait a minute. We had abbreviated video number 7. Just concluded number 8. And this is number 9. Okay. So case number 3, Kenneth Rose from Central Michigan. Linda Moulton Howe was realizing that there are far more types of grays than types of ETs than she just assumed were all gray. And she talked about this at a Michigan Moulton conference, and she invited experiencers to come up and talk to her, and she got a huge number of people interested. This one guy met with her and told her he saw her body in a tube with shoes on, the shoes she was wearing right then at the conference, and the comment about the tube really caught her attention. She had not mentioned this. And she asked him, what tube? Now, this guy, Ken Rose, this is an alias. He said he had been taken by 3 grays to a room with 3 women in tubes, and that there were dim lights in these tubes. She, Linda Moulton Howe, was in one, covered in a gold metallic dust. And he was told that these bodies were covered in this gold metallic dust. It was an antibacterial. She had some missing body parts, which they don't go into, so it might be creepy. But he was told that they were under construction. And he left with a promise to draw the memories back home in Philadelphia, that he would be able to. And in a few weeks, he sent a package. Oh, he didn't leave the alien space with that promise. He left Linda Moulton Howe with that promise. It's been a while since I read this. He left Linda Moulton Howe from the MUFON thing, went back home to Philadelphia, and eventually mailed her drawings of what he saw. So hang on, and we'll... This is very strange. And if you see missing body parts, this abdominal cavity is still open. They're not completed yet. So that's one thing that he saw. And here's another version of it. Not the clearest artist in the world, and there's a lot of weird detail, but just to give you a quick look. Just a quick look. So the story... It's really interesting to Linda Moulton Howe, because this man used many of the same terminology that Juana had when Juana told her the story. They didn't know each other, and they hadn't heard each other's stories. So the story is that there are overseers who are a bit like a god. They control the power of life and death. They make final judgments. They look human. They have no hair. And the grays fear them. Then there's a controller who's in the same room. Let me see if I can... Okay. This is the overseer. This is the controller. These are the people. I hope some way you can put that on hold to get a good look at it. It's very interesting. Let's see here. Where am I? So the controller's in the same room at a set of controls. He has a helmet with something that looks like horns. He studies people's behavior, and he can manipulate anyone, anywhere to do anything. Nothing goes unnoticed. He's a bit like the praying mantis that was older and wise. The overseer told Ken Rose this. The information, okay, the purpose of mankind is to help raise the conscious state in lesser animal forms, like it was done for us by genetically altering to a higher state of consciousness. We are to colonize the planets in our solar system after bringing them to a more habitable state, which we can do with chemical alteration. By providing more habitat for more species, we're fulfilling the role in which God intended us to have as caretakers. We were to be the caretakers, not the destroyers. Man is a product. Wait a minute. We were designed to be workers in a grand scheme. Man is a product of a genetic manipulation. Something happened in man's history whereby he was abandoned by his maker because the council told them, genetic manipulation, no more interference. Our makers were robbing the planet of all its wealth for whatever reasons, and they were treating human life inhumanely. Their reckless disregard for human life, they destroyed Neanderthals and introduced Cro-Magnons, allegedly according to this story, resulted in the council stopping their use of slavery of mankind. There's a confederation of ETs that are studying mankind, but they are under commission by the council, not to interfere with human beings. Ken Rose said this is not much info, but he tried to remember. He asked the people on the craft, why were the people of Earth like this? He found humans cold feeling, like killers, and life anywhere in the universe is a struggle, but life in its varied forms is quite beautiful. On this Earth, people look past the forms and kill them. Instead of working on this planet, they work against it. So I asked them, why were we in Vietnam? This is a while ago, huh? Your words don't represent your feelings. Your actions do not represent what you believe to be a truth. Your words don't fit your actions. You have many levels of justifications. Truth is centered around you. It's like a circle. It's closed. Truth can be only a straight line. It cannot be a circle. Truth cannot be accepted. It injures the ego, the self. To accept life means to accept all life. You're not ready, nor will you be ready to accept all life. This race, the human race, is defective. We cannot give this race the opportunity to flee this planet with the knowledge of the stars. It would be too dangerous for the rest. He asked, who are the rest? And they gave him no reply. So Ken's letter said that their plan was to create confusion, to convince other ETs that intervention was necessary, to break down society mentally, mental illness, hyperactivity, addiction, OCD, materialism, greed. So Ken Rose divorced after this and disappeared, and she never heard from him again. Linda Porter in 1995 said those who do survive will evolve. Right now, humans are time traveling from the future to stop government technology that would alter the future. It got into the wrong hands, this technology. Changes are, many of us will be removed and brought back to start over after Earth is cleansed of hatred, greed, and negativity. The government can do nothing about any of this. It's too late. Then humanity will be welcomed into a universal fellowship enhanced by ET association and evolved higher with higher knowledge, very different from life on Earth now. Many hybrids are here now trying to help. They look human. You would not be able to tell. And they know what they are. The government knows too, and the government is scared. The government exists, all governments exist to exert control and to manipulate people. Soon that won't be possible. In 1996, an underground at Sycamore Canyon, that underground facility was abandoned, filled in. There was a great fear of the military people on the part of the ETs. The blonde ETs were gone and no longer on Earth as a prisoner. That one particular one they wanted back, they got him back. Howe was told by a military source that the government is trying to take on angels. That is chilling. Porter told Howe that the original Earth caretakers were large-headed gray scientists who worked with the mantises and the small gray androids. And they were in conflict with the dark group that thrived on control, manipulation, and chaos. I believe that control group of aliens was called Republicans. There's a struggle between the negative predator ETs and the positive ones who want us to advance. The government fears the hybrids because the hybrids know the truth. The hybrids can discern predators from real humans. So apparently they are actually amongst us in disguise. The hybrids have a variety of missions that predators want to prevent. It's a part of creation at war with itself since the beginning, and they've been creating beings to fight one another ever since. The UFO situation is one of the evolution of humans rising in an ever-expanding universe, life renewing itself. It's more complex, more transcendental paradigms being created. So we have another quote here. Whoever controls the UFO phenomenon is intimately connected with the afterlife of human beings. Raymond Fowler. So now we have ETs, spirituality, and death connected. So Linda Moulton Howe asks, could the notion of angels be accurate? Are other dimensional intelligent entities joined with biological entities? And if so, why? I just love how her mind works. You know, she asks the right questions. She's tempted to say that we're being manipulated, except UFO experience and the near-death experience are often similar. The tunnel, the hole, the beings. There's a reference in abductee stories to death, to a cloned new body, or an interaction with ETs at the moment of death. For example, Dr. Kenneth Ring, we've talked about him. He did the Omega Project and discussed the overlap of near-death experiences with ET UFO experiences. And he also encountered stories in this research of tubes with bodies in them. At age 3, so this is a woman that he interviewed, and her story sounds like Juana's and sounds like Ken Rose's. At age 3, I remember a very tall man appearing in my room in Cleveland. The next thing I knew, we were in the mountains of Egypt, and inside were many semi-clear containers with people in them. The man said that these people were sleeping for a long time, but in the future would be awakened to complete their tasks. Raymond Fowler wrote the book The Watchers, and with Betty Andreasson. Let's see here. Fowler in The Watchers says the UFO NDE connection seems to be telling us that whoever controls the UFO phenomena is intimately connected with the afterlife of human beings. This is a deeply profound revelation with ever-escalating implications for humankind. Whatever the reason, which may be beyond our comprehension, alien interaction seems to be part of a constant interplay between life here and life in the hereafter. For if we take and integrate the total characteristics of the UFO and NDE phenomenon at full face value, the bottom line implication is that death may be the ultimate UFO abduction experience. So, ETs may see souls as an electromagnetic field and may regard us on a molecular or atomic level or an electronic level, and not like the visual thing we think we are. They may look at our physical body as containers for information downloads, and they're seeing the energetic part of us. Are ETs really recycling souls so people return from an ET experience really literally changed? During abductions, there are many reports of out-of-body experiences, and ETs work on the spirit that is the out-of-body experience. So this work shows up in the physical body later. So what they're saying is people will have an ET encounter. Suddenly they realize they're not in their body. They're looking at their body. They go on and do whatever it is the ETs do. And when they come back, they're completely changed. For example, Betty Andreasson. In 1950, when she was 13, she saw herself leave her body. Greys, and you didn't hear a whole lot about Greys in those days, took her to a great door, the entrance to a world of light, to see what she was told was the glory of one. And she was told it was not available yet to humans. So she didn't get to go in, but she was told about this and brought right to the door. So she had many experiences from the age of 7 with these Greys. She was telepathic. The communication was telepathic. She also met tall, white-robed elders who did talk to her. She had a distinctly theological take on this. Her version was the bad angels who were watchers were jealous and wanted to hurt people, and the good ones were helping with the elders. Tall beings control the Greys, and the Greys' eyes are like cameras for the elders to see us remotely. So the tall beings with the little Greys are actually a good thing. They do their bidding, these little Greys. These are the android types, and they're remote imaging surrogates, and they serve terrestrial tasks. Now, this is coming from somebody who learned this in the 1950s. The elders want us to evolve spiritually to survive and honor the one, the creator force. These are ETs we're talking about now, speaking about spiritual things. So it's a conflict between intelligent beings and humans. It's our history of religious belief systems being used to manipulate us. What do I always say? Raymond Fowler was a religious scholar, and he draws parallels between religious figures and ETs. In 1980, there was a report of U.S. Navy military personnel who saw tall, golden-haired, white-robed beings with 3 to 4 Greys outside of a domed, pulsating red-yellow disc at the top of Mount Etna in Italy. MJ-12, Majestic 12, reports discuss that Jesus Christ types have been interacted with guys in robes. Jesus Christ types is how they describe them. Betty Andreasson asked, why here? Why are they on Earth? She asked these elders. Well, she asked the Greys who work for the elders, so she's getting the response through them from the elders. He said that they are the caretakers of nature and natural forms, the watchers. They love mankind. They love the planet Earth, and they have been caring for it and man since man's beginning. Let me reiterate, this is not in this paragraph. This is me talking. If this intrigues you, stay tuned for the next book we do. They watch the spirit in all things. Man is destroying much of nature. They're curious about the emotions of mankind. He's saying they've collected the seed of man, male and female, and then they have been collecting every species and every gender of plant for hundreds of years. Just try to remember this because it's going to be important in the next book we do, which, remarkably enough, these things present themselves in almost sequential, logical order. So, this being called the sexes ambassadors of an external, internal, eternal presence. So Jesus is hypostasis, the underlying reality of God and man, which is why this age-long debate, is he a man? Is he a god? Is he 1 in 3? Is he the shamrock, like St. Patrick tried to explain? He is the hypostasis, and the definition of that, because I looked it up, is underlying reality of God and man. The apotheosis is when God and man are one, when a man becomes like a god. But the hypostasis is the joining together, the one of God and man. So the question is, are these elders seeding life? Are humans an experiment? Stay tuned for our next book. The gray androids are made on an assembly line, like generic workers or communication devices. The mantis does the communication between dimensions and after death. The question is asked, did negative watcher angels interfere with free will humans created by the elders and contaminating us? Is UFO a deception manipulation related to the ancient tales of angry angels who interfered with Adam and Eve in Eden because they were jealous of humans? Back as far as the Book of Enoch, the Dead Sea Scrolls, that was one of them. He reports visits. I think this is still Fowler talking. He reports visits from very tall, shining men with wings that put him on a cloud that moved to the elders. This is in the Book of Enoch. They described 7 heavens. From the first heaven, where Satan is punished, it's cold and hot. It's a hell for the damned. To an Eden and a tree of life, to the watchers, to the armed host meaning a whole bunch of them. And it seems to be a description of dimensional frequencies, and it brings to mind immediately the levels of evolutionary hierarchy on spiritual planes between dimensions, which are all divided into planes, and then another dimension divided into planes, as described by Hermetic philosophy. So angels record the keepers. There's a whole large pecking order of angels. I remember as a child we were forced to memorize them. I don't even think I can anymore. Angels, archangels, thrones, powers, denominations. What are the little Cupid ones called? The little cute ones. The Romans called them putis. They were like little baby heads with wings. And I think there's something else I can't remember. But there's a whole hierarchy of angels, and they all have different jobs to do. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. So there seems to be this dimensional frequency, as I said, like the Hermetic principles. Enoch was excluded from the Bible for describing evil existing in levels of heaven. I think that's interesting. But the scrolls also, the Dead Sea Scrolls, contain writings that also discuss two-spirit theology, good and bad angels struggling for a soul. Enoch describes this as well and says that the first humans could see angels, that modern human retina sees a small percentage of the electromagnetic spectrum. This talks about the finite number of souls, and therefore the demand far exceeds the supply. This references in ancient texts exist to 6-fingered gods, and the question is this why the Sumerian number system is based on the number 6? Stay tuned for our next book. So we now have dissection video out there, you know, after Roswell, of the dissection of a 6-fingered ET. Ancient texts describe hybrids of gods and men, and their lifespan seems longer. The story of Enoch was censored by the early church because its early church priorities were political and were business and politics, not truth. Enoch has been, had been scriptures for several centuries. You know, all of the decisions that form the basic structure, the bone structure of the Roman Catholic Church didn't happen for a few hundred years. There was a period of time between the death of Christ and the establishment of a real institutional church that we think of. It's the ancestor of the Vatican, let's put it that way. It's about 300, 400 years, give or take. And a lot of the things that they now teach us the Word of God, they voted on. A lot of texts were destroyed. We are very lucky that above the ancient community of the Essenes, somebody managed to hide in Qumran, managed to hide the Dead Sea Scrolls. So because of hybridization that he talked about in the Book of Enoch, and evil in heaven, it was rejected, and they replaced it all with the Book of Revelation. So these later church authorities said that celestial beings only existed in the spirit in heaven, that they weren't interacting here on earth, they weren't manifest on earth. Much old writing says Satan, under many other names, was an angel who refused to honor humans at God's command and got kicked out for his ego. Betty Andreasen was told the ETs take samples because we will make ourselves sterile and they need the DNA. They preserve us and the balance of nature, which is in jeopardy of extinction. Betty's husband, Bob, was also abducted. He had an out-of-body experience, and he talked with an elder. And the conversation he had was really interesting. He came back and said, look, we're constantly being monitored. Nothing that you do in your life escapes these elders. It's like a recorder, your life, your existence on the planet. It's recorded from the time you were born. Well, from the time your other lives were born. And until you die, everything's there. How you react, what you think, how you feel, what you do, emotions, thoughts, feelings. And all of this together, this process of you, determines how rapidly you advance and what your next step will be. So this is reincarnation. The early Catholic Church voted to not believe in reincarnation. They just took a vote. Yeah. So this determines what teaching you need, what hardship you undergo to deepen your understanding. It's all recorded. It's like stages. It's like a never-ending school. And Denise and I had a conversation about this the other day. She doesn't like to call it a school. But I think that makes it more easily understandable. You know, it's lessons, challenges, a school, experiential opportunities. You know, it doesn't matter what labels we put on it. It happens, and we either make good choices and evolve, or we have to do it again. You know, in some way, repeat that same basic lesson. Sorry, I can't think of another word. So the spirit is the ultimate creation. There's nothing above a spirit. It is the creator's masterpiece. It goes on, it evolves. It can overcome evil because it has existed in many different bodies at many different times. To go back to another time means to go through the death process, and that process sometimes can be very traumatic depending where you were and what happened before. The whole idea of the spirit advancing is to get closer and closer to the Creator. That's the ultimate goal. The spirit can neither be harmed nor improved. The only thing it can do is advance and grow. You are eternal, having a physical experience. We're talking about ETs right now. Keep that in mind. So everything in nature has a plus and a minus, a light and a dark, a negative and a positive, a good and a bad. And without some evil, there can be no good. There can be no growth. We need the dark to make a choice of the light. The Creator gave us choice. We can't use choice unless we have two choices. Evil or good. It's so simple. There must be evil to have choice. Evil on this plane must exist. As the population of the planet increases, there will be those that have plenty. There will be those who are greedy. There will be those who have not and are starving or will starve. There will be dissension. There will be conflict. This plane is not perfect. There will be evil. But there will come a time when evil will be wiped away. When that time comes, our growth will not cease. Rather, we will advance into further planes of existence. The people of this plane as a whole are not very advanced spiritually. This is like lower than preschool. Technology is advancing. Spiritually, unfortunately, spirituality is not keeping pace. Man is developing many things which are harmful to him, which he does not understand. Man needs spiritual growth desperately. So the story of the Watchers goes far back in Sumerian and Babylonian stories. If you've not read Zecharia Sitchin, he wrote a whole series of books. He was a scholar of Sumerian cuneiform. He took their myths. Stay tuned for our next book. So intelligent life in the universe in 1966, written by Carl Sagan, speculates a possible ET connection to Mesopotamian history. Remember that. Sumerians believed themselves to be of non-human origin. Linda Moulton Howe thinks there are two categories involved, this ET interaction. There are interdimensional features and biological life forms from other solar systems and times. So a guy called Blair Peterson wrote Starman intervention theory, which is that ETs came and hybridized us, but the church claims man fell from perfection. He puts the burden of sin on us because of a disobedience to God. And he says that we're pawns of an ongoing battle between angels, higher entities, which I think means that not all angels are real great. So Howe never thought of that when she was doing her 1979 research of animal mutilation. Never occurred to her. She began, she says, as a hardcore scientist, an investigative journalist of hardcore science. She was shocked by a conversation that she had in 1984 with Dr. J. Allen Hynek. Now, that name should be familiar to people. He was one of the early proponents of this notion of ET association. And he talked about, with Linda Moulton Howe, she wasn't expecting this because he was a hardcore scientist too. He talked about magic, the Rosicrucians, Steiner, and theosophy. And she was like, wait, what? He would put his pipe between his teeth and nod and refer to the section in Steiner's book subtitled The Spirit in Spirit Land After Death. Steiner's point of view was that the soul lives between body and spirit, passing in and out of matter containers to keep the spirit grow, to help the spirit grow and flower. And she could not believe she was hearing Hynek say this. And this is reincarnation for soul evolution. The soul or the spirit retains the knowledge across many physical lifetimes. And we're still talking about ETs. Jim Sparks talked about, and this is the guy from the beginning of the book, talked about his experience and memory that was passed on. And it's true for everybody that all of our experience, our life, our memory, and that of our forebears are in our DNA. And we differ from the Greys because we have free will. Our choices determine our destination after death to a specific dimension or a realm that resonates with our soul's spiritual frequency. I'm going to read that again because that's the crux of the whole thing. Our choices determine our destination. After death, what happens to us depends on what we've chosen to do in our bodies. Our destination after death can be a specific dimension or a realm that resonates with our soul's or spirit's frequency, vibration. So in summary, governments have been hiding ETs, the presence of them, the interaction of them, the study of them, and their technologies for at least decades. Governments have kept, now this is alleged in this book, who knows? Governments have kept secret knowledge and the nature of all of this to prevent panic in the population, allegedly. This includes the interaction of ETs with humans for eons. And so the question that Linda Moulton Howe poses is, which we're going to ask the cards, that's why I'm marking this, is it ET science or is it spiritual evolution? There are numerous star systems that could be involved in this, but are we talking about different planets, galaxies, or dimensions, or time? Different planes, different frequencies, the moment of death, all of it is involved. And so she asks the next really good question, why? What's the purpose of all of this? This is all very perplexing. The purpose for human creation might have served a multi-level agenda. No simple answer. An experiment to unite the divine spirit with primitive animal. To use the petri dish of planet Earth to test that new hypostatic creature, while the humans did work for the elder watchers, such as mining and building communication machines. Machines such as pyramids, ziggurats, and temples. To harvest information and genetic material from the human souls, minds, and bodies and other life on Earth for applications in galactic trade of clones, androids, and other commerce. Perhaps even for different timelines and survival needs of time travelers suggested by the experiences in chapters 1 and 2 of the book. Whatever happened around the whole Eden experiment, Adam and Eve, the apples, all that, was spoiled, and it provoked the wrath of God. And eventually we ended up with cataclysmic events like the flood. Stay tuned for our next book. So were religions first introduced to homogenize us in our thoughts? How ironic if that was the purpose of religion, because they sure don't want us to be united now. And did they do this? Did they give us a sense of religion so that we would not self-destruct? And then did we run with that and screw things up? Stay tuned for the next book. It's a very interesting approach, and it does talk about some of these big issues. They may reveal themselves to us, but it seems to be trouble and conflict between higher forces and how they're allowed to interfere and to what extent they're allowed to interfere. Many variables here. We cannot really assert any definitive knowledge. It's from this interdimensional conflict that human concepts of good versus evil and God versus the devil emerge. One group of advanced beings wishes to see humans evolve into wholeness, equality, and co-creatorship, while another group of beings desires to stunt the evolution of humanity so it continue to utilize its resources for self-serving purposes. FYI, that's happened before. The latter group has come to represent the dark or evil forces within the collective human unconscious, while the former has emerged into your mythologies of the gods. Then we have one of the biggest staged false events the negative ETs are planning will be, this is really important, false flag event, a second coming holographic insert to mislead humans. Guardians will also use the Christ image to help people if they trust in that image. So the future struggle between the negative and positive agendas could be very confusing for humans. So in other words, do you follow the example of the life of Christ and the words of Christ and the life of Buddha and the words of Buddha and other elevated beings to love one another, to do good, service for others? Or are you all wrapped up in the institutional hoo-ha of organized religions and punishment and hierarchy? Got to keep your focus on love. That's what you do. So This is repeating the historical and mythological theme of recycled souls and clones. And this could be a big problem for us because an awful lot of people have completely bought into the patriarchal, theocratic, hierarchical control system. So maybe it's beyond our understanding, really, and we have to bring our focus back in. We've looked at this, we've acknowledged it and discussed it. Now we have to recognize that the only thing that matters is love one another. So one abductee told Linda Moulton Howe that our universe is paired with its opposite, and souls go back and forth in cycles. That's a real interesting concept. There's an invisible matrix of energy from which everything emerges and to which everything returns. So the epilogue of the book, we've come to the end of the book. It's almost sad. In 1977, towards the end of writing the book, the first reports of cloning emerged. This book was written a while ago. Dolly the sheep, they cloned monkeys, and in 1993, George Washington University admitted that it had cloned human embryos. Soon after 97, Clinton banned cloning, but then 19 European countries did the same thing. However, England, the United Kingdom, did not ban it, and they got Dolly the sheep. What else did they clone? Jim Sparks said that ETs farm us by cloning us, allegedly, in this story. The impact of the unseen in our lives is indisputable. I mean, it's happening. Near-death experiences convince people that there's more to reality. There's a life after the physical body. Howe has been told by these people who have interaction with these elevated beings, Howe's been told, you are one with light. And I think she specifically has done so much good. Her books, her YouTube channel, her appearances, she's been so consistent. She has integrity and honesty and intelligence and enlightenment, I really believe. I hope you follow her career. Earth Files. Tell her to call me. So our future may not be in our own hands if we're at the heart of some cosmic or angelic battle. This may not be something that we can do. I was going to say a whole hell of a lot about it, pardon the pun. Discoveries continue about things like meteorite activity, chemical makeup of things in the cosmos, the organic matter on Mars. Crop circles display complex and more complex advanced math and science, sacred geometry, fractal geometry, chaos theory, reflected in crop circles. A lot of people don't realize that. They think they're just some pretty designs. There's an awful lot being transmitted in these simple, in these designs. Let me show you. That's just not a cute spiral. That's part of, I believe this is fractals. It's called the Julia set. And I'm not going to go through this. We've done it before. We've gone through this before. Look at this. This is very much like DNA, isn't it? Not an accident. Okay, I'm going to show you a couple of more. There's this. And I believe that these are fractals. I don't even know what I'm talking about. That's what I read. So, where am I here? So she asks, are we in some kind of feedback loop? Universal mathematical evolution powered by consciousness? Are crop circles a warning from a higher intelligence or from the future? When this book was written, we had no idea of the environmental existential threat that we'd be facing now. We really didn't understand it fully. So she discusses early studies of frogs, bees. In the book, she does go into this a little more, and I'm not going to go over it. We know these stories. I know you guys are all aware of it. The loss of bees, the loss of frogs, the radiation, the ozone layer. 98% of all species ever have become extinct. So the ultimate question here that this book ends in is this: do ETs see a species in the balance? So that was a fabulous book. I loved it. I would like to send my absolute gratitude to Linda Moulton Howe. I just have such respect, love her work. Valuable information for us all. Now, the good news is I'm going to do a drawing because people very kindly donated enough money for me to buy this book. You don't want to know. It was expensive. This is volume 2. I also have volume 1. I'm going to do a drawing for both of them. Separate drawings. So the same person won't win both. I don't know what day this week I'll do it. And we'll do some cards, because I have a few really big questions here that I've noted in my notes. So thank you very much for watching. I know people have really enjoyed this book because that's the feedback that I've been getting. It's mind-blowing. I warned you that it was going to go in a direction most people wouldn't expect. If you thought you were going to be reading about flying saucers, then this was a real revelation. And as I said earlier, it's uncanny because I didn't plan it. It's uncanny how this book segues into the next book seamlessly and discusses some of these larger ideas from a completely different angle. And I know that people are going to love that too. And then I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm on YouTube probation. I'll tell you very quickly. I did a book, Peril by Bob Woodward, early in 2021. And I got dinged twice, and I got in trouble, and I got put on probation. I didn't understand that there was a process. I just thought, okay, you wait 3 months, you're good to go, because that's kind of what it said. But there's a process by which, when you're in trouble, you take this sort of online quiz to make sure you understand the parameters of what's okay to talk about and what's not okay to talk about. Now, the thing is, I challenged my ding and was told, too bad, you broke the rules. But I don't know how I broke the rules, because all I did was synopsize the book. And I may have quoted somebody who said something that would be considered misinformation, and it triggered an algorithm, but I didn't do it intentionally. I didn't realize, and I don't know. I removed the entire book because I got dinged twice, 2 different times for the same book. I do not know. So you should read Peril by Bob Woodward. Apparently it's loaded with very controversial stuff. But I didn't discover that I was supposed to take that test to exonerate myself until about a month and a half ago. I stumbled on it and I went, oh my God, I thought I was done with this a year and a half ago. Took the test, and then I was told, okay, now that you've successfully taken the test, now you're on probation for 3 months. My probation didn't start until I took the test, so I wasted a year and a half. So I'm being cautious, and I'm not going to dive into controversial things too much until towards the end of January, and I have an epic book that I really want to do. In the meantime, I'm sticking with spirituality, And my daily little political things, I'm trying very hard to be cautious. So I apologize if I sound sort of mamby-pamby these days, but it's pragmatic. So we'll have a drawing sometime this week. We'll do cards on this book sometime this week. Maybe I'll, do a drawing for one volume and mail that off. And in a couple of weeks, do a drawing for the next volume. And let me remind everybody that anybody who is interested, who wants to, okay, I'm just going to tell you that this book cost $100. And after I bought it, Denise said, well, I should have just gone to Linda Moulton House store, her online store. It never occurred to me that she had a store. This is really hard to find, this book, and it's really ridiculously expensive. And I was complaining about it, and people very kindly donated to my Irish Granny Tarot PayPal account to buy this book. And when we do the drawing this coming week, I'm going to publicly thank the people who've donated and encourage you, if you have a book you'd like me to cover. The book I'm going to be doing next week was a subscriber suggestion. I'm open to almost any kind of book, except fiction. I can't do fiction. It's too hard to synopsize. I'm not, the Cliff Notes of Animal Farm. I can't do it. I will gladly accept donations for books because books are expensive. In the meantime, and I'm going to raffle them all off. I'm going to do drawings for all of them, so I'm not going to keep them. It's kind of like I'm renting them, and I'll pass them along. And that way I don't feel so terrible about asking for help to pay for them. And in the meantime, thank you very much for your interest in these subjects. Let me know if there are other topics that you'd like me to cover. And I'll be back here soon for the big book giveaway. Slán go fóill. Sláinte.